you aware the real reason Joe Rogan stopped doing Howard's show and chose you was Howard accused Rogan of stealing bits from him for Fear Factor? As you know, Rogan considers the comedy police. Man, I mean, I don't know if we ever talked to Rogan about this, but me and Anthony, I'm just kidding. I'm not accusing Rogan of anything, but I'll say this. Back in the day at WNEW, we discovered something called the hissing cockroach. And we did a lot of bits with the hissing cockroach. One of them was the staple bit, the 55-gallon drum challenge, where we actually were able to get women to go into 55-gallon drums. We haven't talked about this in a while. This is what we did on the radio. This is why, to this day, we're considered amazing. Because as everyone else was doing, shock jock stuff, we were doing absolutely insane stuff. Just imagine, we had to get like, I'm trying to remember how many contestants, 5 or 6 contestants. So we had to get 5 or 6 55-gallon drums. We had to bring them into WNEW and the studio area. We had a giant area outside the actual studio that had like a foosball table, and it had a pinball machine for a day, and it had other things. It had couches. It was like an awesome lounge. Back in the day, we did the radio show, and we had a traveling group. They just showed up every day. It was crazy. So we're like, let's do this 55-gallon drum challenge. And I don't know, we never asked permission for anything. They would just come down and look at us and shake their heads because the ratings were so crazy that the money was just pouring in. They're like, just don't say anything. For a little time there, we were just left alone, I guess is what I'm trying to say. We were just left alone because the money was just coming in. So we got girls, we put them in the 55-gallon drums, and then guys would volunteer what they wanted to pour into the drums. And it would be all sorts of just disgusting, gross stuff that would just pour. As the show's going on, we would pour the next disgusting stuff, and we'd go down to Chinatown and find their scraps, and we'd find like all sorts of live things we could throw in the 55-gallon drums. We got away with this. Think all sorts of bugs. And one of the bugs was the hissing cockroach, which just would creep you out, man. I mean, a cockroach by itself, a regular New York City cockroach, will freak you out when you see them. I get more freaked out by New York City cockroaches than rats, if you want to know the truth. And then somebody said, you got to check out these hissing cockroaches. And you touch them and they go, sss, sss. They make a literal hissing sound. We would throw those in the drums, and the girls would lose their effing minds. And then we would throw in all sorts of other just slosh, and they had to stay in the drums, and they would tap out. They're like, we would make sure it got worse and worse until they tapped out. But the hissing cockroaches were a big get. And all I'm saying about that is then you fast forward, I don't know, maybe a year later, and Fear Factor was using hissing cockroaches. Like, that's why I'm not officially accusing Rogan. If you're doing a show like Fear Factor, you certainly could find hissing cockroaches like we did. But I remember the time we even discussed it a little bit because we didn't really know Joe Rogan. And we're like, that's weird. That Fear Factor show is like using hissing cockroaches. And our event, our 55-gallon drum challenge was massively huge for the time. So there you go. But I think the big thing on the 55-gallon drum challenge, someone found live effing eels that were about this big. And there were just little holes in the 55-gallon drums. And that was the showstopper. When we knew we were running out of show and we needed a winner or at least a conclusion to our bit, we would put the live eels through the tiny little holes, and the sounds that were coming from the drums, oh my God, I might have a little of that action in storage. I got to get my old tape still from storage. Maybe I could find that because some of the early days of WNEW, which those years were 98 to around 2002, right? We got fired in 2002. So we made, yeah, I think we made about 4 years there. Um, the early, excuse me, the early years, a lot of that audio is not out there, unfortunately, on the internet. Oh my God.